What's up, guys? So today on the podcast, we have JT Torres, two-time ADCC champion, Nogi Worlds champion, one of the best guys in Jiu-Jitsu, that is around right now. And he's here at my gym doing a seminar this weekend, and we wanted to have him out on the show with you guys on the podcast, and it's really cool. So we went through the podcast we just finished, and he told a really cool story. So for any of you guys that are getting into Jiu-Jitsu and you want to hear how tough it is and how many challenges you'll face along the way to get to something big like a world championship or an ADCC championship, those sorts of things. He starts, again, getting in from everything from training with at the first gym way back in the early 2000s with a blue belt, and then goes all the way into his training with obviously Govao and opening up his gym and everything in between. And I don't want to take too much away from the story because it's a really cool story. So again, I hope you guys enjoy this one. As always, if you want to support the podcast, check out Charlotte's Web. You can go to their website, charlottesweb.com, and use the promo code Jujitsu and save 15% on the order. Again, my recommendation is I really like the recovery gummies with the turmeric and the ginger. They're really good. And Eugene, I originally didn't really care for the orange peel. I really like it. It's grown on me.
Oh, the orange, the orange twist,
orange blossom.
It's orange blossom.
It's lemon twist.
Lemon twist, orange blossom.
But they've got these flavor of the tinctures because, again, if you take the regular one, it tastes kind of like herbally, and they've got the chocolate mint, they've got the orange blossom and the lemon twist. The lemon twist tastes like Fruity Pebbles, but the orange one, it's kind of grown on me. It's kind of citrusy, so I actually like them. But again, it helps me get some of the best sleep. Like I've been doing the CBD. I've been doing around 30 milligrams of CBD in case you guys are curious, and then I make sure that at nighttime I increase my salt intake before bed, so I'll have a meal with a little salt just to kind of retain the water, because again, salt, sodium, like some sea salt, helps intramuscular retention with the water, so that you're not pissing all night, and especially if you're training hard and you're drinking a lot of water, like you wake up in the middle of the night. Yeah. And I've gotten to the point where, I'm sleeping like 8 hours straight. I wake up and feel amazing. And so again, if you guys get CBD, again, I don't care if you don't use Charlotte's Web, that's cool. Just make sure that you guys get one from a reputable company because there's so much stuff out there because it's unregulated. You might get something, and again,
might get you some bath water.
Get that bathtub CBD. You don't want that stuff because again, I've seen people I've had people come into the gym, who said, "Oh, CBD doesn't work for me." I'm like, have you tried some good stuff? And I'll give them a couple of the gummies, right? I gave one of the guys some of the theanine gummies, the green ones, lemon lime.
Is it a recovery?
It's like calm. Yeah, so it's theanine in it. So they took a couple of those, and they're like, dude, I was just relaxed. I'm like, and then you get the good stuff. So check it out. And then, guys, we're also sponsored on this podcast by Epic Roll. Matt originally sent me some of his rash guards and T-shirts, and there's some super some of the T-shirts are super clever, and the rash guards and stuff like that. They're good quality. I used them in some of my training, and again afterwards I was like, yeah, man, if you want to do something, we can definitely do it. Again, Eugene and I get a lot of people that are wanting to sponsor the podcast, and typically we shoot most of them down just because I either don't like their products, I haven't tried them. I wouldn't want you guys to get a rash guard or something and be like, oh man, Chewy told me to get this rash guard and it broke apart and it came out from the seams or something. But all this stuff's high quality. So if you guys want to check his stuff out, it's epicrollbjj.com, and you can use the promo code Jujitsu to save 15%. Keep it simple for you guys. And guys, with that said, let's jump into the podcast. Where in a lot of tournaments, man, it's you compete once and then boom, you're up again. I remember I used to lose my belt. I'd be like, oh man, I forgot my belt somewhere. They're like, you got 5 minutes. You're like, whew, good. I got 5 more minutes to rest. And then
what are the breaks they give you? How long of a break is it?
Well, the trials?
Yeah.
Well, the trials, they go through the whole bracket. Yeah. So it's like a wrestling thing where basically you start with you line up all the weight classes, and then you go through the quarterfinals and semifinals and so forth. So some of the rest, dude, I had almost an hour.
What?
Which is nice, man, because you had plenty of time to recover and get ready and relax a little bit. Then you get yourself stretched out and then go again, stay warm, and then you're ready to go again. And you feel good. Yeah. I think it's such a smarter way because you get to see each competitor at their best rather than who had enough wind to stick with it, or who had a better draw in the beginning, because sometimes you get like I was talking about that match with Devontae went into overtime.
That was a sick match, man.
If I would have had to go into another match, I would have been fucked. I was because if I would have went into my next match with a guy, I would have been fuck. I was just too tired.
Which one was he for you? Which match?
Second match.
Second match.
The tough one, yeah.
God. I remember watching that. I was freaking out. We were watching. I was freaking out.
I was like, "Who's this bearded savage here, man?"
Move that closer to you.
Who's this bearded savage?
A little more. Yeah, keep coming.
It's good.
One more.
Right here?
Yeah.
Perfect.
That's
Perfect.
good. Yeah, so you don't have to quite lean. Yeah, it was that's so crazy because he's so much younger,
And he's good.
Yeah,
He's tough as shit.
Was
dude.
he a black belt already?
Yeah, he's a
at the
black
time?
belt. Yeah, he's a tough kid.
Yeah, he was. Dude, he was.
Up and comer. One of
Yeah,
the new up and comers,
absolutely.
man.
Where did I see him first? Was he an EBI? He wasn't EBI, was he?
I don't think he did some fight wins and stuff like that. So probably something like that, maybe.
But how big was he? Like, I mean, he's like pretty big Jack dude.
No, you know, he's like he's lean as can be and he's strong as can be.
Really?
But I think he actually went down in weight.
Yeah,
because I
he
think
did.
he
Yeah.
dropped a little bit. So I think he was just like one of those guys. He's like really lean and cut. So like he looks big and he's strong as can
Yeah.
be too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I fought him in the Atlanta Open
Oh, did you?
last year.
Oh, did you really?
Yeah, in the absolute division. There was at one point where I was putting him in single leg X and he just picked me up off the I was like, whoa.
That's kind of terrifying. If somebody just does that to you.
Well, it's
They're
funny
just that
too,
strong.
because like you've had this sensation, I'm sure, like where you lock up with the dude and you
Yeah.
like from the very first lockup, you're like, oh man, this dude's strong.
100%.
Yeah,
I
like-
can usually tell off the handshake.
Yeah, exactly. You know, it's like you get in there, and you lock up with the dude, and you're like, oh, he's strong. Opposed to like, you know, sometimes you roll with the dude, and it's like, all right, I'm okay. I'm stronger than this person. You know,
Yep.
which again doesn't always mean you win or lose. It just there's something about like when there's someone that's physically strong where you're just like, okay, buckle up. You know, there's gonna be something there.
Exactly.
Like, I mean, do you think like I'm going to change my game plan up if you ever, you know, feel somebody's strength? Like, I may have to do something different.
I wouldn't say change my game plan up, but I would say usually, like I was saying, off that handshake, if I feel the handshake is kind of loose and not firm, it gives me a little mental edge
Really?
right in the beginning of the
Yeah.
match. I'm like,
That's
okay,
interesting.
I'm going to get after this guy.
Yeah.
Or if the handshake's firm and strong and they squeeze my hand like I squeeze their hand, I'm like, okay, respect. We're going to get after
That's
it.
awesome. Yeah.
Like, what about if they make eye contact or not? Is that a thing you look for?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I always try to make eye contact. Always. And I try to make eye contact before we compete, though. Like, when we're about to walk onto the mats, I keep that eye contact. And when they look away, it's on. It's on. It's on.
I mean, that's interesting how much, like, you know, already you're giving yourself an edge.
Yeah. Oh,
Just
yeah.
that mental edge a little bit.
But I think that's the biggest part of the game, more than physical itself, right? It's the mental warfare of whatever combat sport you're doing, right?
Yeah.
The mind plays a huge part of the game. Huge part of the game.
Absolutely.
How important? How important is it?
I would say it's very important, more important than the physical part.
For sure.
Really?
Yeah, of course. I think sometimes, this is what I always say. The guy on top of the podium isn't always the most skilled person in that division. It's usually the person who's mentally the strongest, who can push through no matter what and just keep fighting, keep marching forward.
Yeah. The way I think of it is like, you know, 'cause you can get someone that's in physical shape, has the tools technically and everything else, but it's almost like having it's like having a fighter jet. You know, you got this really like the most advanced weaponry that the world can put together, right? You know, whatever, stealth fighter jet, and then you don't have a pilot for it. You know, it's like it's great, but you don't have the mind to control it.
Right.
You know, so you know if you have both of those together, then that's something special.
It's a deadly combination.
Yeah, really interesting. We were talking when we were getting lunch. Man, tell us how you got started, because it's such a crazy thing to think about where you're at now, where you're a two-time ADCC champion, Nogi World's champion, all this stuff.
Right.
Like, how did you get started in jiu-jitsu way back in the day?
So the way I got started was traditional martial arts, right? So I first started training karate. And I first started training karate in the Bronx. So I was born and raised in New York City, right? I lived there until I was about 11, 12 years old, and my parents moved me up to a place called Rockland County, New York, like the suburbs, you know, the people call it the sticks in New York, you know, which it really isn't, you know, but it's the sticks.
Compared to
right?
maybe Manhattan or something,
Yeah,
right? It's just-
exactly.
yeah.
We're only still 40 minutes out of the city, you know?
Yeah.
But they moved me up there. But before we moved up there, I did a little bit of karate in the city. So I kind of got my, you know, my little hunger and desire for martial arts. So when we moved up to Rockland County, my cousin started doing karate first. And I wanted to do it too. So I asked my parents, could you guys sign me up? So I signed up. It was this guy named Peter Clemente. He had a small dojo, and he taught Valley Tudo. That's what he taught, you know. Was it Valley Tudo? I'm not sure, you know. I can't tell you if it wasn't or or if it was or if it wasn't. But what I can say is that he didn't make us train hard. You know, we were really kicking each other and punching each other and sparring hard. We were learning good stuff. And my karate teacher, he was into fighting NHB, right? You know,
No holds barred.
No
Yeah.
holds barred. Right? That's before it was like known as MMA.
What
That was
year is
before
this?
rules were there. You know, that was like back
Yeah.
when guys were just fighting.
Yeah.
And,
This
So-
was early 2000s.
That's when you started.
That's when I started. Well, when I started karate, it's probably like 2000, 1999,
Yeah.
2000, 2001, somewhere around that time. Early 2000s, late 90s, right? So NHB, this guy was really into it. And because of him, he's the one who kind of pushed us to learn other arts other than just striking, right?
That's awesome.
So he knew the importance of like learning takedowns and submission. So within his style of karate he was teaching us, he would teach us a takedown here and there, a little submission here and there, right? So I always had an idea of the submissions and the takedowns, and then he's the one who convinced my dad and my mom to sign me up for a mat club, for wrestling club. He goes, get him working takedowns right now. So they signed me up for a mat club. So I started doing karate and wrestling early on. I was like 11, 12 years old. Fast forward, I turned 14 years old, got my black belt in karate. And this is right before I was going in high school, right? This is the summer going into high school. And I thought going into high school, I didn't want to tell my friends, you know, the people in high school, yeah, I do karate. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm going to get, you know, I don't want to be known as the karate kid in high school. So I'm like, I'm going to quit being the karate kid. You know, I got my black belt. That's it. I retired on top. My dad was always the one who was pushing for me to stay involved in martial arts, right? So a little background on my dad. Both my parents are actually born and raised in Puerto Rico, right? When my dad decided to go to college, he decided to go to college in Iowa. Right, so he moved from a tropical island in the Caribbean to Iowa, out of all places,
It's
right?
polar opposites.
Yeah, polar opposites,
Yeah.
right? So he moved to Iowa, and when he moved to Iowa, he went to Iowa State, and Iowa State, you know, I want to say at the time he was there, was Dan Gable the coach for the wrestling team? I'm not sure. I gotta fact check that.
So
my
Dan Gable was, if I'm correct, there was Iowa, and then there's Iowa
well,
State.
he wrestled at Iowa State, right? That's what it was.
Yeah.
And then he coached Iowa, right? But anyways, I remember my dad telling me, like, when he was in the dorms and all that, he would see these guys with funny looking ears.
Mm-hmm.
He was like, you know, what's their deal? And he started, you know, kind of learning about, you know, this and wrestling. Oh, okay, Iowa's known for wrestling. So that kind of intrigued his interest in grappling and martial arts and stuff like that, because my dad was a big fan of MMA.
Yeah.
And so he was all about it in the beginning, you know, me doing mat club and karate and all that stuff. And so when I decided to quit karate, I went to high school. I want to play basketball. 5'8". Didn't make the team. Right? Didn't make the team. So after that, I was like, you know, I got nothing to do. My dad was like, go back to the dojo, train martial arts, stick with it. I was like, okay, I'll try jiu-jitsu. And ever since that, I loved it.
Yeah, Jiu-Jitsu was, so where did you go do Jiu-Jitsu? Was it the same
place? Yeah, same place.
Huh.
Same place here.
It's really interesting to think that, like, because most people, you know, when they have their style of martial
Yeah.
arts, like, this
Yeah.
is my style, like,
Yeah.
don't, you know, I mean, you've got people like Bruce Lee who was like,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah, yeah.
find what works, find the best stuff, take it.
He's
you
a
know.
man.
But yeah, Bruce Lee's pretty awesome. But yeah, it's interesting to, you know, to have somebody that's kind of open-minded
Yeah.
like that, that's really like prospering, kind of helping you grow.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. If it wasn't for him, I credit him to where I'm at today. You know, if he didn't set me on the path, I don't know where I'll be at today.
What was it about Jiu-Jitsu that drew you in? I mean, that you've gotten so good at it. Like,
Yeah.
what was it about Jiu-Jitsu?
It was hands-on. I can feel the power of it. I can feel how it worked, especially coming off karate where, you know, we practice a lot in front of the mirror, kicking and punching, where jiu-jitsu was hands-on. I felt the power of it right off the bat.
When did you notice that you were kind of a special talent in Jiu-Jitsu?
Within the first few months. Yeah. Man, I'm getting excited to see how we start sweating already.
Yeah,
I get
yeah.
real passionate talking about this here.
What was it? What were you doing? What did you notice?
I was submitting everyone early on, and it was just because I was studying. I was going on my own, studying books and magazines, whatever I can find to study, I would study, and just boom, I started applying right to the mats right away.
And that was hard to do back then because, man,
Yeah.
like there wasn't a ton of stuff to like.
No.
There was no YouTube.
What
Like,
year was this, by the way, when you started Jiu-Jitsu?
This was 2005.
Yeah, so it's just before
2005.
YouTube, and
Yeah.
like maybe you get maybe you have like some magazines and stuff, and you have like the books. Did you get books? I had a couple. I remember I had a Jean-Jacques book, and
Yeah.
it was like they'd be standing, and then it would be like the next picture would be him in a fully locked armbar. You're like, how do you get there? You know, it was like so hard to like put that stuff together.
You know, I had this website I used to check out all the time. I don't know if you guys remember. It's called bjj.org.
Oh yeah, that's where I
You
found my
remember
first
that website?
gym. Yeah, yeah.
That's where I used to study a lot of my techniques from, actually. I used to go on there. It was like picture frames, right? Like picture by picture, explain the technique. And that's what I would study from. And then I would go to class and try to do that same technique. And I remember hitting those techniques. I'm like, man, I'm pretty good at this. I can do this. I can do this here, right? And that's when it, my interest sparked, right? It went down a whole rabbit hole, right? I kept exploring techniques and learning and just even making techniques of my own early on. Like, what would happen if I go left instead of right, or put my leg there instead of there? And like I said, I just felt the power of the art, because like I said, it's hands on.
Right.
You feel how powerful this technique is, and it really works.
Well, you put it into use right away. It's not like theoretical.
Exactly.
It's actually like,
And you have it done to you.
Exactly.
That to me is the most powerful part, because you go to your first jiu-jitsu class
Yeah.
and you're powerless. Like, sometimes if you're punching, you can, every now and then, if you've ever gone with like a really good boxer, like you literally cannot hit them. It's like
that's
trying to
true.
box a ghost. But like, with jiu-jitsu, just like an average decent blue belt can take someone that doesn't know anything, and you're literally powerless. To where you're like, dude, I got to learn this.
yeah,
you know.
Yeah, and it's addicting too. The crazy thing is how addicting it is, because you realize, like, you learn a technique or you research it, and you're able to apply it in practice, or in a training scenario, and then you're like, oh shit, it worked.
It's true.
And then you're like, it's like, oh man, you get that thrill, that excitement, that adrenaline rush, kind of.
It's true, man.
Yeah. So how old were you when you started training?
I was
jiu-jitsu?
about 15 years old.
15.
15, yeah.
How did you feel like you developed your style? I mean, you have kind of a wrestling heavy style. How do you feel like that came about?
Well, definitely, I gotta credit the my early years of wrestling. When I joined that mat club, New York and New Jersey, are two solid states for wrestling. There's a lot of good wrestlers that come out of those two states, and because of that, there's a lot of tournaments in the area and stuff like that. So when I first joined the mat club, practice was like 2-3 times a week, and there was wrestling tournaments every weekend. So I was wrestling every weekend. My dad would, I remember there were some Saturday mornings where I'd be laying on the couch watching cartoons, and my dad was like, "Hey, we gotta go wrestle." I'm like, "Oh, I don't want to." He's like, let's go wrestle." So that's why we see that heavy influence in my game now, just because that's what I did for years as a kid, right? Just wrestle. And also, I gotta say too that it goes back to my karate teacher again, because his style, what he wanted us to learn all these different arts for was for MMA, right? In MMA, you got to be aggressive, you got to be on top, you want to keep pushing that pace. So early on, my jiu-jitsu, the way I was being taught jiu-jitsu was for MMA purposes, right? Submit the person quick, get on top, get to positions where you can dominate from. It wasn't like, let's find a way to sweep the person in this position. Learn a quick way to get up and get to the half guard smash or to the mount, or look for a quick arm bar. So the style was always very aggressive that I learned early on, and that's what I stuck with. And even till this day, that's just what I'm recognized for now, having that style that's always forward moving, searching for the submission, and just try to take somebody down and get on top and submit them.
Now, when was your first jiu-jitsu competition, right? Because, I mean, to me, like, I don't know about you, like, competition, like, you through wrestling and stuff, that's what addicted me to grappling.
Yeah.
Because I was like, this is so much fun.
Yeah.
What was and obviously now you're known as a really good competitor. What was your first jiu-jitsu, when was it, your first jiu-jitsu competition? What was it like?
I want to say my first tournament was super early on. So there was this tournament, it's still around, actually. I went to it last year to coach some of my students, called Battle of the Beach. It's put on by Naga, right?
Yeah.
And I remember at the time, Naga was the tournament.
Yeah, it was the biggest one.
It's the biggest one. It was the tournament, right? And Battle of the Beach was probably their biggest event. It was held down in Wildwood, New Jersey, the Jersey Shore, right? The famous Jersey Shore. And it was a fun trip for us as kids then, because it's the Jersey Shore, there's the boardwalk, rides, beach, and all that. So we'll go down there and compete and then hang out for a few days afterwards. So it's held every August, right? So I started training the summer going into high school, say June. That August I competed. And I want to say I probably won a match and then probably got submitted the next match, but it didn't discourage me. I was like, when's the next one?
Yeah.
When can we do the next one, Dad? Sensei, when's the next one? Where do I sign up? You know, can you let me know? So I was hooked from my first tournament, right? And I would say after that, for the first year of me competing, I probably got submitted like first or second round for the first year of just tournaments, right? Yeah. But never ever did I get discouraged. I just told myself I want to improve. I want to get better so I can be the one submitting people. You know, and I think competing early on just has helped me compete now. Yeah, at a higher level, right? Just building experience and just feeling comfortable out there too.
I always wonder what that is, that mindset, because, you know, like you said, because some people they lose at something, whatever it might be, and they get discouraged, and then there's some people that are like, all right, I lost. I want what they have. Yeah. Like that power that they were able to beat me, I want that. Yeah. I'm gonna go get it. You know, I wonder what do you think that is? Do you think do you know what it's in you, or maybe it's your upbringing or something that was like made you like, I'm gonna figure this out. Like instead of getting discouraged that you're not doing so well, you're like, I'm gonna get to the point where I can do that too.
You know, I definitely think it has to do with my upbringing when it comes to that. I think there's a lot of things that go into that, right? But you know, at least for me, I came from like a working class family where I had to earn everything I had, right? I remember early on, you know, nothing was ever given to me. I had to work hard. So when I experienced, you know, those kids earning the first place on the podium, I would see them get the Naga sword or the Naga belt.
I want that belt.
I wanted that. You know, I wanted that. And all I knew at that point was hard work. Like that's what my parents have taught me since day one. You know, it's hard work. If you want something, you gotta work hard for it. No other way around it. We can't give it to you. You gotta earn it.
Your parents' first generation here?
Yeah. First generation here. So they taught me, like, look, if you want something, you got to go out and get it. So when I saw those kids up there in the podium, I'm like, man, I want that. I want that. And I wouldn't say it's so much it was just the belt or anything. I wanted everything that came with it. You know, like that accomplishment, that feeling of accomplishment. I think I've always been someone who's been driven by success. I've always wanted to be successful. You know, in anything that I was doing. Like I remember when I was trying out for the basketball team, I tried hard, man. I tried hard. I made it to the final round of cuts in my freshman year. I tried hard. Even at one point, I wanted to be a professional skateboarder too. I remember I was jumping off stairs, like going off ramps, not knowing really what I was doing, but I had no fear. Like I didn't have that fear of failure. Where I was like, I'm gonna get after. I'm gonna try to, you know, do whatever it is I have to do to get to where I want to get to. And you know, when I saw those kids winning those Naga belts and swords, I knew I had to, you know, put in extra work to get there, but I knew I wanted it. I wanted to earn it.
Do you remember the first time you got up on top of the podium?
I want to say it was,
or maybe like, do you remember a time where you were like, because you know, for me, there's always like there's a couple of wins in my memory where they really stood out as like that was something special. Yeah. Do you have like one of those wins that was like early on that was like, okay, this is something big, this is something special? Like, what was that one?
It was back at a Naga, right? And there was this kid, I can't remember his name, but he was from New Jersey, and he was the kid who was winning the teen division, the advanced teen divisions, right? He was killing everybody, beat me up a few times, right? And like I said, I never got discouraged, and there was one tournament where I took his back and rear naked choked him in the finals, right? And when that happened, I was just like, you know, this is my path. Yeah, I did it. This is my path, and I'm only continue going further from here. You know, especially when I got on that podium and got I want to say I got the belt. It was the belt that year. I just said, you know, this is what I was meant to do. This is what I was meant to do. I'm gonna keep pushing this further and further and further.
Yeah, and you realize when you have something like that, especially if you saw the guy winning, and then you beat them. Yep. I had this in wrestling, in high school wrestling, where I remember going up against a guy where I had a couple seasons where they didn't go so well in my sort of coming out season. Right. I went up against a guy who I remember watching at state the year before, just trash dudes. Wow. And then I'm on the mats with him and then beat him. And it's the same thing where you're like, maybe I'm pretty. You start to sort of realize maybe there's more than you think there is. Yeah.
Right, 100%, man.
Cool.
You prove it to yourself, right? Once you prove it to yourself, and once you get that feeling of success, it's like, to me, it was a drug, and I got addicted right off the bat. I said, man, I love success. I love it. I love the way this felt, and I want more of it. Just keep chasing it down.
So how did your jiu-jitsu progression kind of move along? Where did you find yourself training down the line? How did you kind of get to work with Andre and kind of work with him?
It was a long journey from that point to getting to San Diego, but it was a good journey. It was a journey that needed to happen, right? I'm a firm believer in everything happens for a reason. So, these first few years of my jiu-jitsu development, I spent with that karate sensei in New York, right? That same year that I started jiu-jitsu, my parents divorced, right? Nasty divorce. It hurt me, but I think jiu-jitsu was there to keep me on track, though. I think if it wasn't for jiu-jitsu, I probably would have fell off the track and, been a bad kid or something, right? But my dad ended up moving to New Jersey, northern New Jersey. So I would see my father every other weekend. And I remember one weekend, my dad shot me a text message, I think. He goes, hey, I found a jiu-jitsu school down the street from my apartment. Next time you come up, we'll check it out. Okay, cool. I was excited. I'm like, let's check this place out. So we go, and when we go, I remember we showed up on a Saturday, because I would see my dad on the weekends. On the Saturday, they had their open mat. And I walked in, and what do I see there? A black belt. Up to that point, I've only seen, the highest belt I've seen was a purple belt, I think. My instructor was a blue belt, right? And I saw this black belt standing there wearing a gi, wearing a black belt, and I was just like in awe. I was like, whoa. Yeah. I've never seen one of these before.
They were like unicorns.
Yeah, right. Even at Nagas, right? Like in Nagas, I remember watching the purple belt matches or even a brown belt match and be like, whoa.
Did they do this thing back at those tournaments, like where, like, if a brown belt was on the mat, like all of a sudden it was like pins and needles?
Yes, it was quiet.
Like quiet as can be, because it's like you're watching something that, you don't get to see all the time.
Yes, I remember one of these Battle of the Beaches, I think, or one of the Nagas, Mike Fowler walked in. Oh, yeah. It was a brown belt, and I remember people in the stands where I was sitting. I heard them whispering, "That's Mike Fowler. That's Mike Fowler. We gotta watch his match." But so I rolled up on an open mat and I met this guy named Lou Ventiloro, and he was a black belt under Hoyler Gracie. And like I said, at the time, my instructor was a blue belt, and I saw other blue belts on the mats training there as students. I'm like, whoa, man, this room is crazy. This is high level, So I started training. I started training there every other weekend when I would go see my dad. And then I told myself, man, I need to be here more often. So, credit to my dad. He invested a lot of his time into getting me up there, right? So he would come pick me up in Rockland County after school, drive me to New Jersey so I can train, and then drop me back off home so I can go, do homework and go to sleep and go to school the next day. And between Rockland County and where he lived in New Jersey is probably like a 40-minute drive, so it's not like a short drive, but to do that back and forth, it adds up.
Sure.
So I started training there more often, and that's where I really started seeing my jiu-jitsu take off. I started getting a lot more, a lot sharper, a lot more, sharper with my techniques and just my understanding of jiu-jitsu overall. And I saw a difference in when I was competing, right? I was 15 when I first started training there, right? Turned 16, I got my purple belt from Lou because I was just killing everybody. I was killing everybody, man. I was submitting everybody in the gym as a 15-year-old kid. And at the time, I'm not a big guy. So at the time, I was probably 130 pounds, smaller guy. And I was just, tapping out grown blue belts and purple belts. So I got my purple belt at 16.
That's crazy.
Yeah. And then I signed up for a tournament where it was like kind of I want to say like a pro division or something. I don't know if it was a pro division, but it was a division where it was an advanced division. The winner got $200. I remember that was big back then,
right?
I'm like $200, right?
There was money being given away. That's a big deal.
Big deal, man. And I remember I submitted a black belt. It was a no-gi division, right? And I submitted a black belt. It was like a 16-year-old purple belt. Rear naked choked him, took his back. And that's when people started saying, who's this kid? Like, who's this kid what's his name, JT? Who is this guy? And when I submitted that black belt, the referee for that match was this guy named Jared Weiner, who will later on become my instructor down the road, right? So Jared was a black belt in Philadelphia. He has his own school in Philadelphia. So he was the ref for that tournament. I ended up winning that tournament. He congratulated me, you know, nice to meet you, blah, 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 blah. You know, I continue competing, building a name for myself in the local circuit, and I run into this guy named Wilson Hayes. Wilson Hayes, you know, he was a high-level jiu-jitsu player at that time, one of the best at that time. I remember him having matches with, like, Cabrinha, when Cabrinha was at his peak, and they were having, you know, tight matches. So I ran into this guy, Wilson Hayes, a few times on the local scene, you know, throughout New York, New Jersey, Philly, you know, the tri-state area. And Wilson beat me every time. It would either be in, like, in the semifinals or finals. He beat me every time in a super tight match, though. You know, and you know, at the time, I'm a 16-year-old purple belt, and he's like a high-level black belt already. And, you know, I wanted to win. I wasn't satisfied with just giving him a good match. I'm like, man, I want to beat this guy. I don't know how to, though. I need to reach out. I need to seek higher knowledge somehow. So what did I do? I messaged Wilson on Facebook or maybe MySpace at the time. I don't know. I don't remember. And I sent him a message. I'm like, hey, would you mind if I came down to train? And Wilson was really cool to write me back and say, hey, man, no problem. We come down. He goes, I'm teaching out of BJJ United in Philadelphia, Jared School. All right. So it's like, you know, it's like
it's all coming together.
It's all coming together, right? So, you know, Jared reaches out to me the next day and he goes, hey, Wilson told me you're going to come by and train. You're more than welcome to come down and train. You know, come down anytime you want. I'm like, perfect. So I got in my car and I drove down to Philly. And I drove down to Philly, and I remember seeing, you know, Jared training, Wilson training, a few other black belts training. And like I said, at the time, I came from a school where there was a black belt, but now I'm going to a school where there's multiple black belts training and training hard, training like I've never seen before. They were starting on their feet. You know, where I was in New Jersey, you know, starting on their knees, or one guy goes to guard, or you push the guy over, you know, very like traditional, low-key style of training. These guys were doing like competition training, like doing like long rounds, takedown onlys, or, you know, they're, you know, shooting hard double legs. I was like, man, this is like, I like this. This is like the wrestling room,
right?
But for jiu-jitsu, which I haven't seen then, you know, because at the time I was so used to jiu-jitsu being like real laid back. Like I remember guys would complain in New Jersey where I used to train, like, you go too hard, relax. You go too hard.
They're just mad because you're beating them.
Yeah, they're mad because I'm beating them. But, you know, I'm just like, all right, I'm going too hard. But, you know, again, I started off with wrestling, you know, so I'm like, that's the pace in wrestling.
Well, you're young. You're wrestling. You're a young guy. It's like you're testing yourself. I mean,
exactly.
That's what you're doing.
Exactly. So I go down to Philly and I see that they're doing this, but on the jiu-jitsu side of it. So I'm like, whoa, man, this is where I need to be. So I made the commitment to driving down to Philadelphia like 2-3 times a week. You know, driving 2.5 hours each way. You know, I had a beat up Toyota Corolla at the time. I was working at McDonald's just to, you know, get my gas money and pay mat fees and stuff like that, pay for the tolls. And I made it happen, you know, and I had a talk with my instructor in New Jersey at the time. And I told him, hey, man, I want to move on. I want to, you know, I want to be a world champion. And I feel like I need to be here in Philadelphia training with these guys if I want to be world champion. So I understand. He shook my hand, you know, and I went on to continue training down in Philly under Jared and Wilson. And Jared was, if I'm correct, Lloyd Irvin's first black belt. So through Jared, I made a relationship with Lloyd, right? I got my black belt from Jared and Lloyd, but it was mostly from Jared. You know, I was training under Jared at the time, but, you know, Jared was a black belt under Lloyd. So it was like a joint ceremony. And I remember after I got my black belt, Lloyd told me, he was like, hey, I'm opening up a fighter house down in Maryland. Just come and train full time. That's all you have to worry about is training full time. And I said, whoa, this is
like a dream.
It's a dream.
Yeah.
You know, it's a dream. So I'm like, I'll do it. So I dropped out of college. Parents were pissed, pissed. And I moved down to Maryland. And, you know, that's when I really saw my jiu-jitsu take off. now I was training full time, and that's where I started, beating some world champions, former world champions, getting on the podium on some of the biggest tournaments in the world, making some real noise.
Yeah, I remember your match with Lepre.
Yeah,
like I remember because you guys would always end up somewhere against each other.
Yeah,
and I remember what did you get him with first? Was it bow and arrow?
Bow and arrow.
Yeah, man. I mean that was a big deal.
Yeah,
I mean, Lucas, he's a monster. Absolutely. Like he's an amazing grappler, and for anyone to beat him, let alone someone with a bow and arrow choke.
Yeah,
that was a big thing.
Yeah, and in Brazil too.
Yeah,
that was the crazy part about it. I was down in Rio, fighting in where Worlds used to be held in Tijuca Tennis Club is what it's called. And I remember it was just an insane environment for that match. Like, I'm the only American. I mean, people always say, "Oh, I thought you were Brazilian." I'm like, "No, I'm not Brazilian."
Got a good tan.
Yeah, I got a good tan. Yeah, exactly. I'm tan all year round, So, but no, people are always surprised, especially when I go to Brazil. Like, no, I'm not Brazilian.
You speak Portuguese at all?
A few words here and there, a few phrases. That's it. A few words to get around and ask where the bathroom's at, kind of thing.
So when you were at Lloyd's, when you made that transition to training full time, whatever, and you really felt your game pick up, what do you think that was? Do you think it was just simply that you were able to train full time and you didn't have to do anything else? Do you think it was something about the training, maybe a little bit of everything?
A little bit of everything, right? It was an opportunity for me just to dive deep into jiu-jitsu, where I can just focus on that all day, every day. I don't have to worry about, I got to go work right now, or I got to, do this or do that, or I got to go take this class, do this homework, have an assignment due. I just focused on nothing but jiu-jitsu. And also the training. I mean, I got to say, Lloyd's a great coach. He pushed us to a whole new level, something that's I don't think had been done yet from the Americans, in jiu-jitsu at that time.
Yeah.
He was like I think we were leading the way for the Americans doing jiu-jitsu at that point.
Oh yeah, I mean you guys were pumping out guys that were winning consistently at the big shows, and I mean everyone that was kind of from that crop, like everyone had pretty much that was like the big players. Yeah. They're all still doing great. If they were competing, they're still doing well.
Yeah.
None of them were like, he whatever. No, they're all doing well, even if they moved away.
Yeah. Yeah. It's true. And I compare, how my first karate teacher, he loved learning other arts and stuff like that. I felt Lloyd was the same way. Like he was all about sambo and judo and striking. So like he combined all these different arts and taught us from all those different arts, which gave us an edge. And it showed when we were competing.
What was the typical? You said the training was just a lot more hardcore, intense.
Hardcore.
What was the training, like a typical training session like?
It would depend on the time of the year, but I'll give you like a typical training. Like if we were training for Worlds, for example, we would come in. I remember it was 11 a.m. in the morning, and that would be the hardest training session of the day. And I remember at the time, I was one of the most, or if not the most advanced belt on the mat, right? I was a black belt, and we had guys like DJ Jackson and Keenan Cornelius. They were purple belts at the time, right? And I was able to beat them pretty easily at that point, right? So what Lloyd used to make me do, he used to make me do rounds on the Aerodyne bike or on the roller, on the roller. What's it called?
Rower.
Rower. Exactly. Yeah. I remember I used to do like 20 rounds or 10 rounds of 20-second sprints on those things, right? And then do rounds like between Keenan and DJ, like they kind of Shark Tank me. So like DJ, Keenan, and the Aerodyne bike were Shark Tanking me. So those were like my training sessions. Like they were just brutal, like brutal. I remember there was this one thing that we used to do. Lloyd would take all these guys, like 4 guys, and line them up, and I would sit on my butt, like getting ready to play guard. And guys would switch on me every like 30 to 45 seconds.
Yeah.
Like
Shark Tank.
Shark Tanks.
Yeah.
Like brutal Shark Tanks, right? And that's what my training was like for years, for years while I was there.
Did your body break down at all? I mean, do you feel like you had some injuries from that style of training?
I feel it now.
You feel it now?
I feel it now. At the time, I was, 19. I was 19 years old when I got my black belt. So I was 19, 20, 21, 22. I was young, so I can bounce back. More than anything, he built my mind up.
Yeah.
Built it up. Like those training sessions, like I said, at a certain point, physically you can't do anything. It's impossible because you just get exhausted. It's just impossible. And he would tell me that, like, you shouldn't be able to do anything right now. But I want to see you still trying to fight, though.
Yeah. Do you quit?
Exactly.
Do you quit? That's the big thing. Yeah.
Exactly. So my mind will kick into high gear into those in those training sessions, and that's what I think those training sessions were more about now. Now that I look back, 10 years later, I'm like, those training sessions were more about mental training than physical. You know what I'm saying? Which I thought it was the other way around. I'm like, man, maybe I should just drill a little bit more. Do I get killed like this every day?
Yeah.
But it was more about mental then. And again, I owe a lot of that kind of that training to my success today.
Well, that's a barrier that people have to break through, because a lot of people that, like for instance, if you're in a really hard competition match and you get into those deep waters, there's going to be that moment where your grips are going to be tired. You're going to feel that burn in your lungs, and your body's telling you, "Hey, man, we're done. Let's quit." And then you got to basically go through and say, "No, we're not done. We got to do this thing."
It's true.
And unless you've like been there plenty of times to, it's like anytime something happens the first time, you don't have a good you walk away from the situation. Man, I should have done this. If someone ever does this to me again, that's what I'm going to do. Well, if you get to that point consistently, then you understand, like, when I get there, I still have more in me. You just keep going, So that's cool that he did that.
Yeah.
And so from there, you were training at Lloyd's. How did all that go down?
So when I was training at Lloyd's, it was some of the best training and best years of my life. In the fighter house, we built a really strong sense of team. How
many guys were living in that house at any given time? Because I remember there was you guys had the levels. I remember he was doing his show, and I mean, to Lloyd's credit, I know that people have things to say about him, but to his credit, he did a lot of really cool stuff for the grappling community that it was never done before.
Yeah.
And when you think about that fighter house, giving guys a chance to train full time, oh my God, that's amazing.
Yeah.
But I remember the fighter house, you guys had levels, so there was the downstairs where they had the visitors or something. There was then you were the head dude at the house or whatever.
Yeah.
So how many guys would be in that house on any given time?
Let me see here. I want to say anywhere between 10 and 15.
Oh man.
Yeah.
A bunch of grapplers.
Bunch of grapplers, and it was young guys too. So we didn't know anything about cleaning.
How nasty were those toilets? I just want to ask you. Did you ever go to a jiu-jitsu tournament and the toilets are just fucking gross?
Yeah.
That's because everybody's got battle craps.
Yeah. That's true.
But you got to think a bunch of jiu-jitsu guys that are just sweaty, nasty.
I don't know, man. It depends on the person. Sometimes, because I've lived with jiu-jitsu guys, and sometimes they're super clean because you got to be clean when you train and stuff, and sometimes they're not. It just depends on the person.
Yeah, there was a few of the guys in the house that were clean. Those are the guys who would keep the house cleaner, but they always be angry at
the rest of you guys. Are like, come on, man.
The rest of us, exactly. But yeah, man, training there and living at the firehouse was amazing for the time that I was there. Towards the end, there was some situations that arose that I think took away the focus from the training, at least for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember having a conversation with myself. Something that Lode always told me too was to be a champion, you have to be selfish.
Mm-hmm.
You have to put yourself first.
Sure.
So I came to a point where I had to put myself first, and I thought removing myself from the current situation and moving away somewhere else to continue training was the best thing for me.
Mm-hmm.
So I can focus on being a champion and not focus on anything else, not worry about anything else. And it's I'm sure a lot of people know the story out there,
mm-hmm.
About all the stuff that went down and things like that. But it was unfortunate. But like I said, I had to put myself first,
Sure.
and I had to go out I had to reach out to continue my training,
Yeah.
And at the time, when I decided to leave Maryland, I went back to New York. I went back to New York and New Jersey. I was staying with my dad and my mom back and forth. I wasn't sure what to do. I even thought about opening a school at that time. I was 22 years old, 21,
Mm-hmm.
22. Right? Yeah, 22, I think going on 23, somewhere around that age. I was thinking about opening a school, and I'm so glad my dad told me, don't open a school right now. Don't do it.
Mm-hmm.
He goes, you got more competing to do. You open a business right now,
you're not all in on competition.
Right.
You have to be able to, because again,
Yeah.
you understand this now, but you spend so much time competing, but now as a coach and a business owner, you can't be pure selfish because you have to be there for your guys.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And you got to be there to run the business and all that stuff. And then you've got to focus on the stuff. But I imagine if you were 22 years old, that would have been way too much to take on at that time.
I wasn't mature enough to own and run a business like an academy.
Yeah.
You know, so at that time too, I think Marcelo Garcia had just opened a school not too long ago. So I thought about, you know, I went and trained with Marcelo. Some videos of me and Marcelo training on his online website. So at the time, I thought about staying on Marcelo's. You know, like maybe I just train here at Marcelo Garcia's. You know, it's convenient. It's in New York. You know, it'd be easier for me to transition to it. You know, I can stay here with my parents. But like I said, one of my good training partners and good friend was Keenan, right? And Keenan, when he left Maryland, he went to California. And I remember him asking me, JT, if you were to go to California, where would you train? I said, I would train with Andre Galvao, man. I think he's one of the best ever, you know? And Keenan was like, all right, I'm going to check it out. So he went to California, and I remember for those 2 weeks after we left Maryland, he went to California. We stayed in touch, right? And we were texting back and forth. And I would ask him, like, hey, how's California, man? He goes, man, it's unbelievable, man. Training's awesome. He goes, you should really come out here. I'm like, I don't know, man. I don't know if I can, you know. I don't have any money. I don't know. What am I going to do? You know, I don't know if I can go out there.
Getting the fear got in you.
The fear got in, right? And he was like, dude, come out. You know, you're 22. You have no responsibilities right now. Come out. Let's do it. Let's come out. We'll figure it out. And I remember talking to my dad about it, and my dad was like, man, you should go. I was like, you think I should go? He goes, you should go. I was like, all right, I'm going to go then, you know?
It's a good dad.
Yeah. He and me and my dad are super close, you know? And I can tell you, of course, he will love me for me to stay back in New York and be with him. But he's like, you should go.
That's cool that he pushed you in that way.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah, I'm very grateful for it. So I packed a bag. I had a couple $100 in my name, and I left with no plan. And at this time, I was dating this girl. We were dating for about 8-9 months. And I remember telling her Wednesday, let's say it was a Wednesday, telling her Wednesday, hey, I'm thinking about moving to California to continue my training and all that. Would you be interested in coming to California and this and that? She goes, I mean, I don't know. I mean, when do you think you would go to California, you know? I'm like, well, I'm actually going Monday. I bought a plane ticket already. I got a one-way ticket out there. I'm leaving.
One-way ticket.
Yeah, I got a one-way ticket.
There ain't no coming back.
There's no coming back. I bought a one-way ticket. I'm going on Monday. If you want to come with me, you can come with me. If you want to stay, you can stay. I know you got your own stuff going on. She had just graduated college, all that. You know, she's building her life after college, you know? She goes, no, I'll go with you. I'm like, all right. So a month later, she came out of California. So I went out there by myself. You know, which I was happy to go out there by myself so I can figure out things. Because I literally went out there with no plan.
Where did you have anywhere to stay? Like, so I mean, like, you got a couple $100, like one-way ticket. Like
San Diego's expensive.
Got a buddy's couch or something?
Exactly.
Yeah, buddy.
I was couch surfing for a little bit.
Gotcha.
So I sent Andre Galvao a message. And I wrote him, hey, Professor Galvao, I'm thinking about coming to California. I kept thinking about him, but I was already coming. You know?
I'm thinking about it. You're like texting him in the airport.
I hope he's okay with it. I hope he's okay with it. So he writes me a message back and he goes, man, we'd love to have you here. Come out. I'm like, all right, cool.
So he knew who you were. I mean, he was pretty familiar with you.
Yeah, I mean, at that point, you were like one of the heavy hitters. I mean, like, because when you were competing, like, you knew, like, you were one of the dudes that was always going to be, like, fighting to get up there on the podium.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I was the guy that they would see in the bracket, like, I don't want that guy first round.
Yeah.
That guy's tough. You know what I'm saying? And I first met Andre Galvao in 2011 when I fought ADCC in Nottingham, England. And we were all staying in the Fighter Hotel. And there was a shuttle that took us from the Fighter Hotel over to the arena so we can do weigh-ins, media, and all that stuff. And I remember sitting on the shuttle and surrounded by all these legends on this shuttle. And I remember, you know, Andre being so nice to me. He goes, hey, JT, nice to meet you. I'm like, oh, nice to meet you, Andre. You know, I'm a huge fan. And he goes, I'm a huge fan of yours, too. I was like,
yeah, right there, right?
Whoa. And this is someone I watched since I was a white belt. Like, hours of footage, man. Hours of footage. So, you know, my whole life's just come full circle. You know, that's like my whole life story. Just everything just comes full circle in the end. So anyways, I sent him a message a couple years later telling him I want to come to San Diego. He tells me, come on down, man. Come on down. So I messaged him like, okay, I'm coming Monday. I don't have a place to stay. You doing anyone that can let me stay with them? He goes, we'll figure it out. So he arranged me to stay with this guy, Leo. He was this Brazilian guy there who was teaching. He was the white belt instructor. So he let me stay on his floor for a little bit. You know, we're just bouncing around for the first few weeks, you know. And then a few of us scraped some money together, and we all went into like one apartment together. So we started building another fighter house in San Diego.
Like how many bedrooms in the apartment?
I think it was 2.
Okay.
There's probably like 6 of us.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Dude.
So we started building up again, you know.
Yeah.
And that's how it started, man. That's how I started. I went out to California, and when I went out to California, my jiu-jitsu grew, right? But what I always tell people, I grew as a man as well when I moved out to California, because I didn't have my parents. I didn't have what was comfortable to me. You know, I just had I'm like, I don't know, how am I going to eat? How am I going to make money? This and that. You know,
you didn't even have like Lloyd providing like the house or
Exactly.
anything, so you had to figure it all out.
I had to pay rent.
Yeah.
You know, that's real.
Yeah.
When you got to pay rent, that's real right there.
Yeah.
So my back was against the wall, but I think that was necessary for me to grow on and off the mats. I needed to do that. I needed to leave my comfort zone to go to a new level.
What had you won exactly? Like what tournaments or what championships had you won prior to going out to Atos?
So when I went out to Atos, I was already a 3-year black belt. I made some good noise at brown belt. So at brown belt, I won double gold at Europeans. I think I submitted everybody. I got double gold at the Asian Open. I took bronze medal at Pan Ams, and I took a silver medal at Gi Worlds, and I won no Gi World and no Gi Pans at brown belt. So I had a really good brown belt run. At black belt at that time, I think I had won American Nationals. I think I medaled at Pan Ams, Gi and no Gi, and medaled at Gi and no Gi Worlds. But I've only won like American Nationals up to that point, you know? So not a whole lot, but I was making some noise at the black belt level.
You're constantly like on the podium and
just
competitive.
I was chomping at the heels of the top level guys in the bracket. You know, people started recognizing like, okay.
Yeah, which is definitely fitting for your age and the amount of experience and stuff like that. So you're in that point where you're an up and comer.
Yes.
Yeah, people can see it. So
exactly. So at that point, that's what I had under my belt. You know, I was always known as the guy who's like, man, that dude is tough. That's the dude in the bracket that you don't want first or second round. You know, that it's not an easy fight. So that's what I had underneath my belt up to that point. And like I said, you know, when I went to Atos, what I felt was different from being there in Maryland. The training was hard too, but I felt the technical aspect of the training just was on another level. Just you know, the knowledge on the mats was just different, you know. And you know, we see it in my results. You know, when I was there, I ended up winning no Gi Worlds and no Gi Pans, and what else did I do out there? You know, I medaled at ADCC. I got bronze medal at ADCC. Like I started, you know, really taking it to a whole different level. I won Europeans at black belt. I won Pan Ams at black belt there with the gi and no gi. I started just climbing. I felt it right off the bat, and that's just, you know, just because of the environment. You know, I remember getting there. I remember my first few weeks of training there was brutal for me. It was brutal. I remember coming from Maryland, being like the top dog or one of the top dogs. You know, no one really ever giving me a hard time unless I did like a bunch of rounds on the Aerodyne bike. To my first 2 weeks there, just getting beat up. I was getting beat up, man. I was getting beat up by purple belts. Purple belts.
Yeah.
I was like, man, what is going on?
Yeah.
Dang. You know?
Yeah.
Purple belts were tapping me in the beginning.
Yeah.
Young guys, you know, guys who are there hungry, competing, wanting to win. And I was like, man, this is... But I knew this is where I need to be.
Yeah.
It didn't discourage me. I'm like, man, screw this.
Right, because you go in there, you're like, okay, you got, the same thing happened to me when I went down to Sean's when he was like in 2008 when he was producing some guys that were doing well in pants, and he was like the closest gym by me that was like really tough.
Right.
So I was like, man, I got to go train with this guy. And so I told Sean's, I went down there. I used to go down there and train like every other week. And when I would go down there, I remember the first time I went down there for a full week just to train with him. I was training like 2-3 times a day.
Yeah.
And I remember he would like, Chewy, he would go with me first and he'd beat the brakes off me. And then he would give me to one of the other black belts and brown belts where I was like holding my own. I was trying hard. And then I would keep going through all these guys to the point where I would be so tired when I got to those blue, and I was a brown belt at the time, going against these purples and these blues.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm like hanging on. Like, I remember sending my buddy a message, I was like, dude, I want to give this damn brown belt back, bro. I was like, but again, it wasn't discouraged. I was like, I want this.
Yeah.
Like the first time I come to Jiu-Jitsu, I'm sure you were like saying, wait, beat the crap out of me.
Yeah. Oh,
I want this.
Oh, yeah.
Not discouraged, but I was like, give me.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to keep training. So, so you're there and getting beat up by purple belts.
Yeah, my first training session was actually at AOJ.
Okay, yeah.
So because then they were doing these cross trainings. Like I remember on Tuesdays we'd drive up to AOJ, and then on Thursdays AOJ would drive down to Atos in San Diego. So I remember my first training session was at AOJ, and they just put me through the gauntlet, man. I remember
testing you out.
Yeah, of course. And I expected it, But I remember first round, Andre Galvao, second round, Rafa Mendes, third round, another black belt. And then, like you said, like towards the end, they started giving me like the tough purples and blues. And of course, they just beat the brakes off.
Yeah, and those tough purples are as good as like, an average black belt.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They're tough.
Yeah.
Good.
So I was like, man, this sucks, but it's where I need to be, And, within, I would say a month, I got my bearings. I got my feet back underneath me, and then I started
What was the adjustments you made? Was there anything specific that you started to do? You just got accustomed to the intensity, or how did you feel like you kind of made up that ground?
It wasn't the intensity that I had to get used to, because if anything, I was probably one of the more I was probably the guys who one of the few guys, or not the few guys, one of the guys who brought the most intensity to the rolls. I'll go hard.
Yeah.
Go hard, man. I had to adjust to the technical level though.
Gotcha.
The technical level was different.
Yeah.
It was just different, just a lot more precise, I want to say, in techniques.
Got to be tighter in your techniques and
Yeah.
stuff. You can't give up as much space or opportunity.
Exactly. I can't just beast out of some things anymore.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Well, and I think that probably for you, because I'm sure it's similar situations like when you go to a new gym, especially if you're training with some really good guys. When you go to a new gym, they have a distinct style that you kind of have to get used to, know?
Oh, yeah.
And especially if you were coming from a situation where you're the top dog, a lot of times you could probably get away with some stuff.
Exactly.
Where then if you're rolling with a guy who, you guys are of equal skill level, where if you make one mistake, that's it.
That's it.
Like you can't, you people got to slow down a little bit more. You got to be a little more thoughtful because, like I said, it's more precise.
Exactly, man. That was the biggest thing I needed to adjust to. Just was rolling with guys on my level or better than me on a consistent basis. Right? Like, okay, I got to be smarter. I got to think more. I already have the intensity. I already have the toughness. I didn't need to work on that. I just needed to work on being smarter, because jiu-jitsu is a unique art and sport within itself where it's physical, but there's a lot of thinking that goes into it.
Yeah.
A lot of thinking that goes into it. It's not like, so same thing with, MMA and wrestling, but I feel like in wrestling or MMA, sometimes you can get away with just grit, just being freaking tough.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I'm just going to snap this guy down over and over again, where in jiu-jitsu, like, you can be put in a position where you're kind of stuck, and
you got to think your way out.
You got to think your way out of it. You can't just be like, oh, get out of this, you know?
Right. I remember watching. I had a guy who, it was around 2013. We were watching the Worlds in the gi, and he was watching it, and he was a college wrestler. He was went to the Sweet 16, so he was tough as can be. And when he was watching the Worlds, there was a point where like they got tangled up, and like you could tell what was happening was like the guy on the bottom was coming for a sweep, and if the guy on top if he made one mistake, he was going to come up.
Right.
So he was just keeping pressure down, and they kind of like he took a second, kind of wiped sweat, and you could tell he's just kind of thinking.
Yeah.
And he's watching this as a wrestler, like, what are they doing? They stopped moving. Like, why are they stop moving? I was like, he's thinking, man. I was like, and I was showing him, like, if he makes a mistake, it's all going to go to shit. So he has to be very careful. And so this guy has to, like, all right, what are we going to do from here? And so because jiu-jitsu has that unique thing where, like, wrestling is go, go, go. MMA is like go, go, go. Whereas jiu-jitsu, a lot of times is like you go and then there's a pause.
Yes,
and you kind of get to a position where there's like some sort of like, almost like, all right, you establish position. What are we going to do now? Exactly. And then you go, and then pause. Exactly. You know, that kind of thing.
Yeah,
so
it's true, man.
As a different tempo.
Different, yeah, that's right. That's the best word for it. Different tempo, different speed to the game, and that was the biggest adjustment for me when I went out there.
Yeah. So when did you so as far as championships go and kind of some big wins for you, when did those start coming?
2015. 2015.
How long were you at Atos by then?
I went out to Atos, let's see, 3 years already. I was already there for 3 years.
Did you kind of sense it? You're like, man, I'm right there. Like, I'm ready. Like, it's coming.
It's coming. My time's coming. And I remember 2015, I won Europeans and I won Pan Ams back to back. And it was a good year for me. Real good year for me. 2015 was but 2014 was a good year for me too. Towards the end of 2014, I made it to the finals of Worlds, right? And sure enough, who did I have in the finals of the Worlds? Lucas Lepre, right?
Yeah, you guys always used to end up against each other all the time.
Yeah, but whenever me and Lepre would fight, it would always be like, you know, at a smaller tournament or in the semis or in the quarters, you know. And, you know, up to that point that we spoke about, I submitted him already. I had beat him before, beat him in ADCC 2013 in China. Like, I've had some victories over him. But I made it to the finals with him in 2014. But when I got to the finals of Worlds that year, it was weird for me. Almost like the moment itself, just was too much for me. Like, I wasn't ready to be on that stage yet.
What was too much?
Well, that would have been a grand slam for you. It's a lot to take in, like, you know, to go from like not being on that level, all of a sudden you've won the Europeans, you won the Pans,
right?
Now you're at the Worlds, you're at the biggest show.
Well, actually, I didn't win those Europeans.
Oh, you didn't? Not okay. That's 2014. Okay, cool.
Yeah,
so we're going back. Okay,
yeah.
So even more so, you haven't even won those yet.
Exactly. And now I'm here in the finals of the World, and I remember just being like, whoa, like my mind was off. Like, I wasn't ready to be on that stage, you know, where everybody's watching and all that. And I remember he beat me pretty good that year. I think 12-0, something like that, right? And and I remember thinking after, I'm like, man, like, you know, like, what happened? Like, I've submitted this guy before, I've beat him before, he beat me before too, but it's always like a good match, you know, like this time he just shut down. I was like, it's gotta, you know, I gotta prepare for the moment. Right? You gotta be ready for that moment. Because we never know when it's gonna come. Yeah. But you have to be ready. And going back to like how we spoke earlier, it's a big mental game, man. It's a big mental game. And mentally, I wasn't ready for that. I wasn't prepared for that. So 2015, though, I don't let anything discourage me, right? I keep rolling with it. Boom. 2015, I win Europeans. I win Pans. So off to a great start, right? I win whatever little tournaments are in between those, like, you know, the Opens, whatever. And then we're training for Worlds, and I'm feeling great for Worlds. Feeling great, man. Like I said, I'm coming off, you know, making it to the finals the year before. I won Euros, I won Pans, feeling great. Week and a half, 2 weeks before Worlds of 2015, we're training. The training camp is pretty much coming to an end now. We're like, you know, it's kind of scaling down. And I remember there were some other black belts that had come to visit and be part of that camp who were also, like, you know, really good competitors. And I remember I was just beating them up. Like, I was ready to become world champion that year. Week and a half out, man, one of these guys jumps close guard and misses and just destroys my knee. Just hypers extend my knee bad. My left knee. Bad, man. My knee blew up, and I just knew right there, and I was like, damn it, man, are you serious? Like, you really have to do this right now? Right now? Week and a half before Worlds? But I didn't pay any mind. I iced it. I stayed off of it. You know, I swelled up. I went and fought Worlds anyways, right? And I didn't make any excuses or anything like that. You know, nowadays you see a lot of champions, when they lose, make some wild excuses on why they lost. But I went out there, fought Worlds, and I got third, right? I got third. I was going for the world title, obviously, you know, coming off from the finals last year, and I was on fire all year. But this dude had to destroy my knee.
What was the extent of the damage? Did you ever get it looked at?
Yeah. I tore my meniscus, right? and it was to the point where like my knee was just locking.
Yeah.
It was like really weird. Like I was fine with it, but then if I would move it a certain way, it would just lock. So I had to be real careful. Like if I let anyone push my heel towards my butt, I couldn't unlock.
Do you
my
have like
leg.
a bucket handle in it or something?
Yes,
Okay. Because
exactly.
I had the same thing where the knee would move, and all of a sudden, like that knee would lock up, and then you just it was such a weird pain.
Yes, exactly. So 2015, I was fighting with that. You know, I was trying to avoid certain positions to avoid my leg from locking out, and I lost to Michael Lange in a close match, and I was just like, man, I couldn't help to think to myself, I could have probably pushed more if I was healthier, you know, but what am I going to do? Yeah, I keep going forward, right? That year was ADCC in Brazil, 2015 ADCC. And they had invited me again because in 2013, I medaled. I had a really good showing. I took the bronze. 2015, they invited me back. I knew my knee was bad, but I said, you know, I can push through it. And then after ADCC, I'll figure it out, do whatever I have to do. You know, this is, you know, I got to try to go out there and win these big titles.
Yeah.
So I trained, we did an 8-week camp for it. I trained about 6 weeks of the camp. And just towards the end, I remember one day I left training in tears just because my leg was so messed up. Like I couldn't walk on it. It would lock. I had to like shake my leg to get that, you know, that bucket handle tear out of the joint, whatever.
Yep.
And I remember just thinking to myself, man, this is, I got to figure this out, man. I don't know, what am I doing? You know what I'm saying? I couldn't even play half guard. I couldn't like put, you know, because in Nogi, there's no real de la Riva. You're using a lot of hooks and pushing, you know, pushing away with your legs. And I couldn't with my left leg. So I need to see a doctor, man. I need to figure this out. So I went and saw a doctor, a specialist for the knees. And he said, you have a tear in your meniscus. He goes, you may have some ACL damage. I can't tell until I go in there, you know, but I can tell you this, you shouldn't compete. If you do compete, you can probably hurt your knee even further. So I had to make a decision. And I said, man, it was that bad that I decided not to go to ADCC. I said, I got to fix this. And at the time, I was still under my mom's health insurance. And that health insurance was about to expire.
So you better get
I was like, I got to get this done, man.
So you're under 26.
I'm under 26, and I'm about to turn 26. So my health insurance is about to run out. So I'm like, man, I don't got a lot of money. I don't know if I can pay for this, you know, surgery on my own.
Probably not.
Probably can't do it.
Nope.
So I'm like, I told the doctor this too. I'm like, look, I'm under my mom's insurance right now, this and that. Is there any way you can fit me into your schedule? We could do the surgery. He goes, all right, we'll work with you. So we get in, we do the surgery, and I miss ADCC. You know?
Did they do a repair or just shave it down?
They removed it. They cut it. They said they cut it out.
Yeah, meniscectomy.
Right.
Yeah,
so.
they cut it out. Took me a couple months to recover. Like I was back walking within a few weeks, you know, pretty quickly, but a few months until I felt comfortable enough to start, you know, training hard again and all that.
Sure.
So 3 months back, and you know, within those months I sat out with that injury. I thought a lot. I got to thinking a lot, and I thought to myself, man, I got to really set my future up, because what happens if I get injured and I can't compete anymore, or this or that? Like, what am I going to do?
Yeah.
You know, like I really, like reality set in a little bit for me. And that's when I started toying around with the idea of opening my own academy. So, you know, I'm 26 now at this point. I said, you know, well, I got to start thinking about my future. And I ended up moving home back to New York probably with 8 months of that knee surgery.
Wow. Okay.
You know, I made a decision like, I'm going to move back to New York and open up an academy. You know, I got to start setting down the foundation for my future. So I had a talk with Professor Gaval, and he was, you know, he didn't want me to leave. And a lot of people told me not to leave. They're like, man, you're on the right path. You're almost there. Like, look at the progress you've made. You know, look at your track record up to this point. Like, you're getting better. You're getting better results. You're getting there. You're right there.
Yeah.
We don't think you should leave, or I think it's a bad idea. And I remember, I think Flow Grappling wrote like a little article on it, me moving back to New York. And the internet, it's a great place to, you know, learn and get information from, but it can also be a brutal place, right?
People love to talk shit, man.
They love it, man. So I remember when they wrote that little article.
Did they write an article saying like saying like what's going to happen to him now or something?
No, they were nice about it.
Okay.
They were nice about it. They were like, oh, JT Torres moving back to, East Coast to open up his gym, wish him good luck, whatever.
Cool.
But the comments though.
Yeah.
Were
Like what kind of
brutal.
comments did people say?
Kiss your competitive career goodbye. You will never win.
Ooh.
You'll never be a champion. Blah, 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 blah. You'll never be world champion. Blah, 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 blah. Wrong move, bad mistake. I remember reading that stuff. I'm like, man, I'm going to prove these people wrong.
Yeah.
Screw this. I'm going to prove them wrong. So I moved back to New York. I drove across the country. And I remember when I drove back across the country and moved back to New York, I moved back with no plan. Mm-hmm. There was no plan. There wasn't like a place I had set up where I signed a lease on already. Like I had no plan. I had some money I had saved up, over the years living in California, doing seminars, prior lessons, a little bit of sponsorship,
What were you doing? Sorry, I wanted to ask before we get too far into, so I don't have to backtrack. When you first got to California, I'm always curious about this. Like, how did you start making a little bit of money just to get by? Did you get a job, or did you just start teaching privates or something, or teaching a little bit?
Teaching private lessons.
Okay.
Teaching private lessons, and I gotta give a huge shout out to my sponsor, who's been my sponsor for almost a decade now, about a decade now, Tatami.
Okay.
Tatami held me down, man. They were sending me some money every month to help me, get by and things like that. And, they believed in me since day one.
That's cool.
Before all the titles and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. So that's how I did it. When I first got to California, I exchanged free training with teaching. So I was teaching the kids classes in exchange for training at Altos. But through that, I had some parents who, hey, can you do a prior lesson with my son or my daughter? So I was able to get a few prior lessons here and there. And then Tatami, and then also living with a bunch of people.
Cool.
Made it a little bit cheaper and easier. So where was I?
Yeah, you're moving back home.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm moving back, and I decided to move back with my girlfriend at the time, and we had no plan. Moved back, and we ended up staying at her parents' house, and her parents live in Delaware. Delaware is a little bit more south than Philadelphia, so it's like 2 hours and change up to New York, right? We knew we wanted to open an academy in northern New Jersey or Westchester County, like outskirts of the city. So we were driving literally every other day up the New Jersey Turnpike to go look at places and going back to Delaware. It was brutal, man. Brutal grind.
God, just the tolls alone.
Killing me.
Bro.
Killing me.
Oh my God.
But we were able to
Tolls
save
are the worst.
Yeah, but we were able to save money on not paying for rent because her parents let us stay there for free, which I'm very thankful and grateful for because rent in New York is crazy.
Dude, because Kentucky, Louisville is not it's not super expensive. It's a nice city, but you can get by pretty easily.
Yeah.
I remember going up through New York, and it was like, I was just curious. I'm like, okay, what are the real estate and rental price? I'm just curious. It was like $2,000 a month, and you get a broom closet.
Yeah,
like,
dude,
it's
it's
ridiculous.
it's crazy.
Yeah.
It's crazy. That's what I pay now right for my apartment. But
How many square feet do you have?
Like
800,000, something like that.
We actually got a good deal because the owner, his cousin trains Jiu-Jitsu.
Oh, okay.
So he put in a good word for me.
There
So it was,
you go. That's
cool.
Jiu-Jitsu got me a good deal. So we have a 2-bedroom for that price. So it's not bad. So we moved back, figuring it out, driving up and down the turnpike every other day, looking at places. Couldn't find a place. And then when we did find places that we liked, the landlords weren't comfortable leasing it to me. They're like, do you have any business experience? Do you have a prior business? Do you have any numbers you can show us? I'm no. Can we see your taxes? I'm like, I was making like $8,000 a year. So I didn't really have much to show. And, it was rough. It was real rough. But we did find a spot eventually. A spot that gave us a chance to set up the academy. And we took it and we ran with it, right? Now, at this time, this was 2016. Towards the end of 2016, I got the invitation for ADCC 2017. Like, we invite you to compete in the World ADCC Championships in Finland. Do you accept? I remember sitting there reading that email. I'm like, man, I don't even have an academy right now. And I wasn't really training. I was like training here and there, bouncing around little academies whenever I could.
Yeah.
And I kind of blew up at this point. I was like 195 pounds, and I shouldn't be 195.
195.
Yeah.
We just eating.
Just eating, man. I was on the road, so I was like, fast food. Like I shouldn't be weighing 195.
Well,
you know?
and plus, if you're not training much and you know the appetite of an athlete, but without the training,
yes,
it's a bad combo.
Bad combo.
Yeah.
So I gained a little weight, got a little chunky. But I said, you know what, man, I got to accept the invitation, and, you know, worst comes to worst. If I can't go, I can't go, you know.
No, will they fly you out there?
Yeah.
They do? Okay.
They pay for everything. They put you up, hotel, food, you know. It's to me, it's the pinnacle of the sport. They really treat the athletes like, I don't have to pay a registration fee to go compete. You know what I'm saying? Like,
you shouldn't have to.
Yeah, you know, like they treat us like pros. So I accept the invitation. We get the academy open, and I think once I get the academy open, 4 months from then is ADCC. And I remember when I opened the academy, I was teaching every class. I was a janitor. I was the handyman. I was everything. And on top of that, I was training for ADCC. And the way I was training for ADCC, I had a few young guys who wanted to train with me from the start because they, you know, they're like, oh, JT Torres, you know, he's a competitor. We want to be competitors. Few purple belts, you know. So my training camp for 2017 consisted of 3 purple belts and my strength conditioning coach, and that's it. You know, that's it. And when I tell people this, they don't believe. Like, no way, this and that. I'm like, that's how I did it, you know. But I would say that I learned a structured training spending my time in California. I saw Andre how he would structure the training and the camps and stuff like that, and I learned, and I did it on my own. And you know, he's such a great person and great coach too, that even though I was back in New York, we still kept contact even during the camps. Like, hey, we're doing this, we're doing that. How do you feel with this? And we'll bounce ideas off each other. And I always kept in my mind that Andre won his first ADCC when he opened up his academy, and he would always tell me the story. Like, I had blue belts, I had like one tough wrestler, and we made it happen.
Yeah, because I remember watching that. Like, he had this like small little gym that he started off with that one of the guys gave him. Didn't really have anybody to train with, so he had these guys and just made it work.
Exactly. So I always kept that in mind. And then, you know, I went to ADCC. I always go out there and compete with confidence, but I didn't go out there with like the expectations of like, you know what, I'm ready. I'm gonna be world champion this year. I said, you know, let me see how this goes. This is like an experiment for me right now, actually. This is my first time doing this. This is my first time running my own camp and you know, being the head coach, right? Let me see how it goes. Sure enough, I'm in the finals. Boom. Who am I in the finals with? Lucas Lepre.
Yeah.
Right? 3 years ago, I was in the finals with him. I wasn't ready for that. And then when I saw him across the mat from me in the finals of ADCC, I said, you know what, man? I'm ready for this. I deserve to be here. We had a 30-minute war. Ended up with me taking him down, taking his back, and securing the victory. And, you know, winning that title with the person, you know, beating the person I beat in the finals, solidified my entire career for me at that point. You know, everything I set out to achieve, I achieved it. So I remember when I first started training, I set 3 goals for myself. My 3 goals were become a black belt, become a world champion, and open my own school. And once I won that world title, ADCC world title, it was just, boom, I stamped it. Solidified myself as one of the best to do it. And, you know, it was I was on cloud 9, man. Like, it was a feeling like no other. I remember going to the back room where we were warming up. I went to the back room after the finals, just crying. Just busting down in tears, man, just because I felt all that work, all that sacrifice, all that grinding, all that pain, all those injuries, all that crap, all the stuff I've been through, you know, drama on and off the mats, the training, the tears, the injuries, you know, everything, being broke, not having enough money for this and that, you know. Damn, it finally paid off.
And not to mention that, but then all of that shit that you're going through, and then on top of that, you have people that are like saying, "Oh, you can't do this," or you know, or even sometimes like when you know, and then they say you can't do this, and then you got no money in your pocket. You want to do you want the other trappings that society has that says you've made it, and you're like, "I can't do anything because of this path I'm following. Am I really doing the right thing?"
Exactly,
like,
man.
You know, all that to go in with all the actual physical stuff you're going through. I mean, it's tough.
It's tough, man.
It's beautiful.
It's tough, man. And so when I won that title, I just felt like, man, I did it. I did it, man. Like I said, I just crying, man. Just bust down in tears, like just tears of joy, though. Tears of joy, tears of like I finally lifted this weight off of my back. Like this, this thing that's always like the stigma that's chased me. Like, man, he's good, but he's not
able to get over the hump.
Yeah, he's good, but he's one of the best, but he's not one of the best. You know what I'm saying? But then winning ADCC, which, in my opinion, is the toughest tournament to win. And people say, "Oh, you're just saying that because you didn't win the Gi Worlds or whatever." I just think honestly, it's the toughest tournament to win just because it only happens every 2 years.
And the money, like
there's money involved. You have to be invited or win trials.
It's the best. I mean, best people.
You can't argue with it,
Yeah, I think that sometimes when people try to discredit it, I mean, I don't know anyone that does, but I'm sure there people are. It's like, to me, it's like, well, it's like, what other tournament pays you good money, flies you out, does all this stuff to actually, like, to me, like, it's a pro tournament.
Yes.
And to me, you're always going to attract the best guys that are out there. And to me, like, a lot of times, sometimes people will try to discredit a tournament because it's no-gi. And it's like, it's just because you can't play Lego boxer because you can't wrestle. It's like
right.
It's like you can't, like, because they dock you if you sit down, whatever. So it's like that. To me, it's like, if you're trying to say it's not the best, well, it's like, I mean, it's kind of considered the Super Bowl of submission grab.
Yeah, I agree. I agree, man. It was like I said, it solidified solidified my career in my opinion, and at the time I always joke around because people always ask me like, what was different, I joke around. I had dad powers, when they say people have kids and they just like they get extra more motivation. Like having that opening an academy was like having a child for me.
Yeah, sure.
Like it was like I had to provide for this academy, and there was a certain point during the construction of the academy that I ran out of money. Right, I ran out of money before I even finished building the school out, and I was just like, damn. I said I need those 10 G's from ADCC. I need this money, like I need it, and I'm sure that played a factor into it too, that motivation for me in that tournament. And just another thing too, I proved it to myself that I am one of the best. I can do this. I am one of the best. And I came back and did it again 2 years later,
Was it harder to do it the second time?
100%. 100%. Just because I just felt everyone was watching me at that point now.
Maybe expectations or
just
the same hunger? Do you feel like you had the same hunger to try to win?
Absolutely. Absolutely. But for different reasons now, I've already, in my book, like I said, solidified myself as one of the best in the history books, boom. But now I wanted to prove to people that it wasn't a fluke, that it wasn't just like, it was his day.
Yeah. He was good that day.
He was good that day. The stars were aligned for him. Like, no, man, I can do this. I'm going to do it again. And I want to inspire my students. Now I'm fighting for more than just myself. When I go out there and compete, before I had an academy, I was competing. Of course, I was representing my team, Otto's and my professor, but, you want to do well for yourself, right? You want to go out there and win because you want to win. Sure. Now I want to win because I have a whole crew behind me that, they look up to me. I want to, represent.
Yeah.
And that was my motivation for 2019's ADCC, is just like, I want to prove to my students that what we're doing at the academy is working. We're building something special here. And I have a stable of young guys now that, young blue and purple belts now that they're good, man. They're good. And my goal now, we're always setting goals, right? I always tell people, you got to always set goals. If the day you stop setting goals is the day that you die. If you don't have goals, what's going to motivate you through your everyday life, right? So, as we continue on life, we always set new goals. And one of my new goals is to make a world champion. Like, I want to make a world champion. And like I said, I have a stable of young guys now that, I've showed them that, like, look, we can do it. Now you guys are up next. All right, now you guys are up next. You guys are in your, you guys are 19, 20, 21. Now it's your turn to go through the fire and, come out on top.
How would you describe yourself as a coach? Like, what's your coaching style?
I'm pretty straightforward. My coaching style is the same style as my jiu-jitsu. Straightforward, right? Like, if you want to become a champion and you give me the time, I'll put in my time, right? Because there's been people who've come to me who tell me, I want to be a champion. All right, let's do it. Let's work. Let's train. Let's get it. Then I don't see them for weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Right there and then, I'm like this.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying I'm going to kick you to the curb, but I'm not going to dedicate my time as I would if you did want to become a champion. You showed me that you want to be a champion, right? So that's you know, and I coach the same way I've been coached over the years, right? But I've taken the things that I like and don't like and made my own way of coaching, right? Like I said, I'm very honest with my guys, very honest. I'm like, hey, man, you're not doing what you need to do to win. You haven't earned the right to win. I always tell that to my guys. You have to earn the right to win. We can't guarantee victory. We can't. This is impossible, right? I'm like, you know, if I do this training for 8 weeks, guaranteed you're going to win. You can't do that. But you can earn your right to win, though. You can earn your chance.
Yeah, you can give them the tools.
Yes, exactly. If you put in the time, you put in the work, we can do it. Not guaranteed, but we can do it.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're an athlete who tells me you want to be world champion, you don't give me the world champion time, then I'm not going to put my time into it.
Sure.
You know? I'll still teach you the arm bar, though, and teach you the takedown that you want to learn.
Yeah. I think it's the thing because, you know, it's like if you have someone that comes in and they're just going to be a hobbyist and stuff, that's fine. You teach them
exactly.
stuff. But you understand that, you know, in order to take it to that next level, you have to be immersed in jiu-jitsu on a different level than the average person. And so, you know, that's happened plenty of times for I'm sure for every coach where the guy comes in, yeah, man, I want this.
Yes.
And then when, you know, it's like, okay, this is what you said you want. And when it's time to put in the work,
they don't show up.
Yeah, crickets. Where you at? You know?
What goals do you have now? I mean, you said you kind of want to create a world champion. For yourself, what goals do you have?
For myself, I mean, create a world champion.
Is there anything that you haven't won yet that you want to win?
Yeah, I would love to win the Gi Worlds. You know, I've been close so many times. That's something that I would continue looking to do. Like, I'll be at Worlds this year. But like I said, I feel like I've solidified myself at the pinnacle of the sport already. You know? So yeah, you know, I'm still chasing the Gi Worlds. But like I said, I don't want to say I'm satisfied with what I have, because I'm still going to keep pushing. But if I had to say if there's one tournament I would like to win, it would be that one, Gi Worlds. Other than that, that's it, man. That's it. You know, like I said, from an early age, I set those 3 goals for myself, and I checked them all off.
Sure.
You ever read the book The Alchemist?
I haven't. I heard of it, though.
Okay, it's a cool book. Listening to your story, I always find it fascinating, like listening to people's stories that like do what you've done, which is kind of you just trust your gut. Yeah. You know, you just follow your intuition to see where it goes, you know?
Yeah.
And it's funny because it's like, you know, it doesn't, when you're in it, it doesn't make sense.
Right.
It seems crazy. You're unsure of yourself and there's all this stuff going on.
Right.
But then it's like when you get away from it, it like everything seems to kind of fall into place. Like even like the way that you won the you know, against Lucas, right?
Yeah.
Like that was the dude that beat you, that took your world title away.
Yep.
And then here you are against the same guy and it's like, then you win. It's like it's a perfect sort of come together, and then all the other stuff that's happened. So it's a cool book, but it's a fictional book, but it's kind of like that where the guy's going on this thing, and there's all these weird things that happen, and he's making decisions based upon intuition, opposed to like what's supposed to be the thing that I'm supposed to know. You know,
right? I'll check it out.
Yeah. So I just thought about it. You know, it's just like because it's something you see over and over again with successful people. You know, whatever the field is.
Yeah.
You know, there's people that are going to hate on them. They're going to tell them you're doing the wrong thing. You're like, you got to go with whatever your gut's telling you.
100%.
Is that probably your jiu-jitsu rival? Would you say you have a jiu-jitsu rival? Or someone that like just is your hardest match or just someone you always...
Yeah. Myself.
Yourself?
Myself,
sure.
man. That's... That, you know...
True.
You asked me a couple years ago, I might give you a name.
Sure.
But then I said, man, the biggest battle is within yourself. And it is. You know, it's all up here. That's where the true battle is. Once you know how to master this and you know, you're in control of the mind, it's game over for everybody.
Is there anything you do particularly for to bring some mental strength, like to make yourself really to really keep yourself that confident and just really
It's training, just training. I always tell my guys, confidence comes from training. When you train and you prepare the right way, that's where confidence kicks in, right? Because usually the people who are not confident are the people who are not prepared, right? So I think there's a direct correlation between the two. So when you prepare the right way, you put in the training, confidence kicks in. And it goes back to my times in Maryland. Remember I was describing those Shark Tanks and Aerodyne bikes? I could have quit easily. I could be like, you know what, man? It's not for me. I'm going to go back home, hang out, and go back to community college, do this or do that. But those training sessions where they're meant to break you, you got to dig deep and stay laser sharp focus. So sometimes I'll put my guys through some brutal workouts, and I'll notice who gives in or who stays strong. So those training sessions that you push yourself, those are the training sessions that work the mind, exercise the mind and the mental strength there, because it's really where it kicks in, right? Once you're at your physical limit, that's where the mind kicks in.
Sure.
So you have to do that in training. You have to take yourself beyond that point where you can't keep up physically anymore, and that's how you start training the mind.
Mm-hmm. One question, because I'm always curious about like mindset shifts.
Yeah.
Because we were talking at lunch. One of the things that happened for me that seemed to correlate with my ability to perform better in competitions was like I'm training hard, everything's still the same, but I'm not so worried about what happens. I'm just like, I just want to go out there and see what happens. I'm just going to go out and do this thing. I'm going to go attack.
Yep.
When you were getting ready for your 2017 ADCC, you're in the situation where you are unsure of your training. You're training hard, right?
Yeah.
But you're not at the point where you're like, I'm training with all the best guys in the world.
Right.
Andre's right there to oversee me. And you said that you went into the competition where you're like, let's just see what happens. This is kind of an experiment.
Yep.
Do you think that competing with that kind of mindset where it's like, instead of it being like, this is my time, I'm here to win and whatever, opposed to like, let me see what I got.
Yep.
Like, do you think that was helpful as far as being able to simply just go on to attack and just being able to not let things like, they'd say, what is it, like, the lights and the all the attention. Do you think that helped you to be more relaxed and fluid and aggressive?
100%, because that when I did that, I let the jiu-jitsu take over. Right? I just let the jiu-jitsu take over. I told myself, let's see where my jiu-jitsu's at. I'm confident I train hard and this and that. Like I said, this is a new experience for me. This is my first time being on my own, being my own coach and X, Y, and Z. Let's see how it happens now. And I think because of that, I was a lot more relaxed.
Yeah. Do you think you were that way when you went into 2019 as well? Do you think you maintained that sort of like I'm aggressive, but I'm relaxed? And
100%. 100%. Like I said, 2017 was like a breakthrough for me.
Yeah.
Breakthrough. I'm like, okay, I think I got this formula down. Yeah, man, I think, when you go in there and you just let the jiu-jitsu, you let your training take over, it always works out better.
And how old were you in 2017?
27.
27. And how old are you when you first started competing in jiu-jitsu?
15.
15. So, 12 years.
Yeah.
Again, like when people you see the newcomers coming in now, and they see you guys and they like, oh my God, look at this guy. Again, it can be easy to forget like 12 years.
Took me a long time.
Like
to get
that's
here.
not even counting the wrestling, right?
Yeah.
We're talking about 12 years of just jiu-jitsu and everything you went through it. Like it's a long road, man.
Long road. Long road.
A lot of hours.
A lot of hours, man. A lot of hours. I remember I think back to those days, my dad dragging me off the couch Saturday morning. I was watching cartoons. Say, you got to wrestle.
That's good. He made you wrestle.
He made me wrestle.
Dude, I see this happen all the time where like, what do you want to do, little Johnny? Like he's a 5-year-old kid. He shouldn't be making decisions for himself. Like you're the parent. You tell him what he's going to do, and like later on, like when he gets older, he makes decisions. But right now, it's like you're the parent. You like you can't let them like if you left. I mean, you think about us as kids. You leave us to our own devices. We watch TV, eat Fruit Loops all day long.
Yeah, it's true.
I mean, I think that wrestling for you and just for most people, I didn't wrestle in high school or anything like that. So I think you get that competitive edge. You get that, you get used to that really intense, consistent intensity with training, and then when you go to jiu-jitsu, it's like it just translates really well.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, and I think that you have incorporated that into your style. You blended it well with your jiu-jitsu, and
yeah, because wrestling, it's go go, like break through, break through. Break them down. I remember one coach always telling me, when you wrestle, your main goal is to break their spirit. I was like, whoa.
Yeah.
That's some deep stuff, man. I was just thinking about getting a double leg or a single leg. You want me to break this man's spirit?
Crush his soul.
Break his spirit.
Break him.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, that wrestling was a different animal. Like you go to like jiu-jitsu tournaments, don't get me wrong. You get mean, you get aggressive, whatever. But like, I remember wrestling was like, I remember hearing a guy say that wrestling was a fight without punches.
Yeah.
And like jiu-jitsu can be that way sometimes. I mean, you'll leave with busted noses and stuff like that. But when you're wrestling, I felt like the whole goal was just to break that human being.
Yes.
I remember dislocating guys' shoulders and stuff, like trying to run halves and things like that. And like, you're just trying to beat them up as much as you'd cross-face them as hard as you possibly could within the rules set, and it's a different beast.
Yeah, it's true, man. I mean, like I said, I brought that into my jiu-jitsu, man, and I think that's what's helped me push through.
What would you say if a student comes in your gym, brand new?
Yep.
Maybe they've wrestled, whatever.
Okay.
What do you look for? What do you see? Like, if they have potential, what do you look for? Is there something you see in them that tells you that they may be able to be something special in jiu-jitsu?
Yeah, I usually look to see their first encounter with their first roll.
Okay.
Right? You can tell a lot from their first roll. Right? When you see a student spar jiu-jitsu for the first time, you can see if they have like a natural feel for it. Right? Sometimes I see that some students have a natural feel for it, like a natural feel for how their body works or how their partner's body is going to move and how do they react and things like that. Something else I look for too, it's how hard the person would fight for a position, right? Because it's you get caught underneath someone's knee on belly, or you get a nice little cross face. You can tell a lot by a person if they fight out of that, right? Or if they're just like lay there and accept it, or they tap. All right, tap, let's start again, Or if they like fight out of it, I'm like, okay, this person may have some interest in competing, or
they're gritty.
They're gritty, yeah, exactly.
So they're not accepting. They're not willing to accept that position.
Exactly. So those are things I look for, But when a student comes into the academy, I don't really have any expectations. But if I see something like that, then I'll try to guide them in that direction. If they want to. I feel like at my academy we have a good mix of that, where we're starting to have a good little competition crew, but we also have a big crew of just people who want to come in and get a good workout in and learn jiu-jitsu, have fun with it. But like you said, it all depends on what they show me in the beginning.
Mm-hmm. You have a pretty big competition team at your gym?
It's growing. I would say I have a good crew of maybe like 20, 30 people who are consistently there training and competing. So it's a good crew. It's a good sized crew.
Awesome. And for people that if they don't know, where is your gym located?
So I'm in Westchester County in Hartsdale. So that's the name of the town, Hartsdale, New York, and Westchester County, which is 22 miles north of Manhattan. So right outside New York City, right north.
It's called Essential Jiu-Jitsu.
Called Essential Jiu-Jitsu.
What's the website for that?
It's essentialjujitsu.com.
Okay.
Yeah, so you guys can check me out on there. Also, I have my online website. People are enjoying that Essential BJJ online.
And then you have Instagram and all that fun stuff.
Yeah. So my personal Instagram, Torres BJJ or Essential BJJ for the Academy's Instagram. So if anyone ever wants to come by New York and check me out, or if you're in New York and listening or watching, that's where I'm at. Come check me out.
Awesome.
If you guys weren't like jerks and you didn't just skip through the beginning, like to get through the pre-rolls, then you can go to charlottesweb.com. You can save 15% on your order and get yourself some good CBD, not that bathtub CBD where you don't feel anything. Because if you're one of those people who's like, oh man, CBD doesn't work for me, you probably got the bad stuff. You didn't get the good stuff.
And you need to be consistent with it. You got to give it at least.
Yeah, it takes a little bit to saturate in the system. Yeah, because sometimes people take it but dude, I'm telling you right now, one of the guys, we have that 60 milligram, like the big one back there. they didn't know. They took like 2 full droppers.
Dude, I did that one time. Because I didn't realize, and I was like walking around.
Your body's just so relaxed.
Yeah.
You know, because I remember the first time I took like a heavy dose of CBD, I was like, holy moly, man.
Remember when
relaxed.
we started tasting all the gummies?
That was a terrible idea.
Yeah.
I still have that video. I need to post it. But yeah, so when Charles Webb sent us some gummies, you know, like Eugene was like, hey, let's test these out. So we took a bite of each one of the gummies to try them out. And I mean, I was so tired. I got home later on that night, and I remember sleeping for 2 hours, which I never sleep for that long because I'm a good like cat napper. I'll sleep for 20, 25 minutes, and I'm ready to go. I slept for like 2 hours. And
They do. I like the sleep gummies. Those are my favorite.
Yeah, Jess likes the sleep gummies. I like the recovery ones. And again, guys, check out epicworldbjj.com if whether you're looking for kind of a cool, like clever jiu-jitsu related T-shirt, or you just want some training gear that's not gonna like fall apart on you.
Yeah, and he's got some pretty unique gis too. I think he sent us a couple gis that we'll have to check out.
Cool.
I don't think we've opened them yet.
Yeah, I'll put the rash guards and the shorts have been great. I'll put the gi to the test. Again, I'm pretty hard on the gis and train with them, so I'll let Adam try to get his death grips on them and see how they work.
Yeah.
So
Awesome,
guys,
man.
again, I hope you guys enjoyed the podcast with JT. I thought that was a really cool one, and guys, we'll talk to you next week.